Previously on the Trogly's Guitar Show, we did the $1,500 challenge. I went on Guitar Center's website, sorted through their vintage and used inventory, and tried to find a deal. And even though that episode wasn't sponsored, Guitar Center saw my video. They said, you know what? We love that idea. So every month, they're actually going to provide me a budget to help me document and cover more used guitars. So if you want to show Guitar Center some love for doing this, please utilize my affiliate links in the description to check out their used and vintage inventory. Or if you're interested in brand new, they're currently having a Black Friday sale that's up to 40% off all your favorite new brands. So what I want to use this new series for is documenting guitars I normally couldn't, $300 to $800 range. And I'm open to any brand. So if you're surfing their website and you see something that you think should be documented on the show, leave a comment with the title. YouTube won't let you put a link, but the title will be good enough, and that will be how I help select some future episodes. So for our inaugural episode, first store up on review, Union Square over in Manhattan, New York. I think you guys are gonna like what I picked out. So this was the deal that I thought was worthy of purchasing myself. This is known as a Gibson SG Special, and it's an 80s model. So let's do a little bit of history. The SG model, as we think of it, was first introduced in the year 1960. It wasn't called an SG yet, but for this demonstration, that's the body shape. We're gonna stick with it. And an original SG Special would look like this. It had dual P90 pickups, whereas a Junior would have a single. The next time that changes is in the late 60s when they introduced the Batwing pickguard. The Specials and Juniors follow suit with it. However, when it comes to the 70s, the SG Special then incorporates mini humbuckers. And some other funny ones to know about are like the SG-1, 2, 250 style series, which was the early 70s version of a Melody Maker. And then in the later 70s, the SG Special then becomes basically the SG standard, but with a dot neck, and it has a regular width to it, whereas the regular standards were a little bit thinner. You can check one of those out in this episode here. But the next time that we actually see the special term come back is in 1981. Do you guys remember the Gibson map guitar, how it originally started as an Epiphone? That is when the SG Special comes back. It was just called the Special then. So you had the Spirit, Special, and the map guitars for the Epiphone USA series. However, as we learned in those episodes, the Epiphone USAs weren't selling that well, so they started to brand them as Gibsons. So that's when you get the return of the Gibson SG Special. What you need to know about those is they have the wrap tailpiece, some sort of a hardwood body, it varies example to example, no pickguard at all, adorned with a maple neck, and a modified control layout. That version that you're seeing here on the screen lasts from about 1982 through early 1984. And then next we get into this version. So what happened in 84 is they switched it over from that wrap tailpiece to a more marketable approach with a tune-o-matic stop bar tailpiece. Nothing else has really changed here. It still does not have a pickguard on it at all, which some guys might dig or not. We still have this more triangular-ish layout over here, and it's a pretty bare bones SG. There's no binding, fancy inlay work. You still have a Gibson decal. This ranks below something like an SG Firebrand that was made around the exact same time. The best way to think about this really is it's the SG version of the thrash metal Flying V's and Explorers, because they get that modified control layout and no pickguard. These just didn't have as many famous people using them, so they don't get talked about a lot. Typically speaking, in the 2025 market, these will range anywhere between $1,000 and $2,000, depending on condition, year, color, but most will fall in the bottom registers of that range. I think they're a little bit underrated, but remember, these were in production looking exactly like this for quite some time, all the way through about 1991-ish. After that point, they introduced the Batwing pickguard back onto them. But within the 80s, they had many different limited editions of these. So there's the regular one that we're looking at today, just the good old SG Special. Technically, if you wanted a one humbucker version of this, you could go back to the 82, 84. Sometimes those will show up. But we're talking things like the SG Special 400, which is an HSS setup. So Long ways from the P90s of the 60s. Humbuggers, single coils, usually has some sort of a Kaler flyer trim on it. There was also the SG Special 400 XPL. Those are cool. XPL was a series. Check out the Aldo Nova episode for more info on that. But they threw out an Explorer headstock on an SG, which is just cruise control for cool. And these things came in a variety of flavors, from Ferrari red, a really cool Panther pink, a white that's always aged a nice creaminess, tobacco sunburst. The one we're talking about tonight is known officially as Pewter. We've talked about these on Les Paul Customs before. They age green, but they actually started life more of a metallic silver, grayish color. But this one's definitely more on the green side. But you can also find just a regular ebony. I've seen a heritage cherry sunburst. I'm pretty confident you can find pearl white on here as well. It's just kind of hard to tell the difference when they get aged. The 80s was a wild time for Gibson. They were trying so many crazy things. Most of them not really that successful, but it's fun to look back with rose-colored glasses. I haven't had one of these for like 8 years, so I'm excited to do an updated take on this. First impressions on this one, the body feels really light. We'll have to check on the workbench to determine what wood it was made out of, but yet the neck feels like it could be a bit heavy, but it's got a nice worn-in vibe to it. I'm digging it, but she's definitely been a little bit battered and abused over the ages. And while I would love to put a blanket statement on what pickups you should find in these, it varies year to year. Usually the pre-86 or so will have Tim Shaw PAFs, and then they switch over into other styles of humbuckers. So this example is from 1987, so keep that in mind. Yours, if you're looking for information about it, might be ever so slightly different from what we're documenting today. So come along for the journey, my friends. Let's go ahead, throw it onto the workbench, take a look at those parts and specs. Here she is after a deep clean. If you want to know what Guitar Center is and is not, they don't do a fine detailing. Expect to clean your guitars. Manage the expectations or everything. This was described as good condition. Let me know if you guys agree with that. Starting with our neck pickup, I was actually surprised. This is a very early 87, but I can see the white spacer and I can see the brass screws. I actually believe this to be a very late production Tim Shaw PAF. That's a huge bonus. And part of the reason why the earlier ones are a little bit more valuable if they have these pickups in them yet. Now, it's important to note, it didn't always have it in there, because look, we have evidence of a different pickup being installed that had a tilt system on it. So I was happy to see that it was the original one put back in here, though, or at least an original style. I mean, all of the patina matches up pretty nicely, and the bottom side of this pickup is identical. But this right here is why you take the readings, because it can't be a Tim Shaw PAF. It reads too high. So this is some sort of a transitional, maybe PU 490 style pickup. Because finding an actual Tim Shaw in 87, it's rare. Occasionally they're still using stuff up. But our bridge is 8.64 K ohms. Neck a little bit hotter at nearly 10. I think I need to clean this output jack. It's going crazy. But if you're curious what your controls are, is this the neck volume? I thought it was supposed to be, but that's acting a little strange. And let's see if this is the bridge. There we go, that's acting right. And this should be your master tone. After cleaning the electronics, I'm getting about 10.5 up here. Bridge position 864, and then they play together at 476. But something else to know about these is this SG retains its top-mounted output jack. In the 80s, the SG Standard actually switched it to the Edge, which is a cool fact to know in case you've always liked side-mounted SGs. We'll take a second to document the condition of the pickups. After I cleaned them, they still have quite a patina. I just wanted to specifically mention it looks like somebody's pick has been digging into our bobbin up here. But here's a great area to see the non-aged finish. So this is what Pewter initially looked like, that dark charcoal gray, and we can see through that this is indeed a mahogany body. Now, how do you know the differences? Well, A, you can show a photo to somebody who's experienced and can look at that and tell you it's mahogany. Mahogany has a very identical wood grain structures to it, and usually a slightly light to dark brown hue. And if you're not comfortable tearing your guitar apart, after cleaning, you should be able to see a lacquer sink effect within the wood grain. If you see something that looks like this, it's most likely mahogany. Now, the official spec sheet on these just said American hardwood, I do believe, so sometimes they can be alder. Usually that'll be pre-1985, because 85 is when they stop using the alder, even on the thrash metal Explorers and Vs as we were talking about. So this one being 87 makes complete sense to be a hog body. But here you can see the long drill run that they do before they throw the neck on to get all your controls down to where they need to be. Full disclosure, these bottom two screws were completely stripped out, likely from the different pickup process. However, I didn't have any toothpicks. I thought, why not try a long strip of solder? It seemed to help it at least secure into something so they don't fall out. And at first I was thinking some of these screws could have been replaced. However, I think it's just a patina difference, because the bottom two matched up even though they don't look like they would. But now, bridge and tailpiece time. It's just a regular Nashville style one with the bushings in the body. Surprisingly, this one actually still has the original bridge. It's got quite a patina to it, but they were Schaller made in Germany in this era. As with nearly every single bridge from this era, over the years, it has slightly collapsed. So if you wanted perfect playability to match your radius, in theory, you should replace it with a modern one that still has the correct curve. It looks like we're rocking the original bridge on this one too. There's a small period of time in the mid-80s when they have these shaved down bottoms. I've seen enough of them to know that it's original, as in the past I have incorrectly called them probably replaced, but now I know better. But now, the general appearance and condition. I think good was a nice rating to give this. It's not quite so bad that you need to get it to fair territory. I mean, we've got quite a sizable ding right there. As you come over to your arm resting area, you can see quite a large gash. There's an area where the clear coat has faded away, as well as going down to the bare wood. Many nicks, dings, and scratches going on over here. Another area where it got dinged up against something. There might be a little bit of wood loss there. I would say that's the worst thing condition-wise that I've noticed. But this was definitely someone's gigging machine. And for further proof of that, during the blacklight test, I guarantee you we'll see some sort of a sticker shadow right here, because in the right lighting, you can just vaguely see the outline of it. So look forward to that. And there is a little bit of a haze to the finish in certain areas. The idea of my cleaning job on this was just to make it presentable and not so yucky. My full cleaning process takes 2 to 3 hours. I had 1 hour to dedicate to this one today. We also had a ding over there. But thankfully, outside of some finish checking, I didn't see any heel pocket cracks, but we'll look at that more on the back side because there is some clear coat wear. Oh, and just in case you're interested in this, it does have a very faint smoky odor. Like, it's not the worst in the world. It's not hurting my head, but something that I wanted to bring up. But our frets do have some wear. Does it match up with the rest of the condition of the guitar? I think so. I don't think you necessarily have to level recrown these, but you definitely have some divoting within your cowboy cord area, and then not so much out of here. And I actually do want to compliment this particular guitar center, because to me, it looks like they installed fresh strings on this. I have not gotten that in the past. Maybe that's something new, or it could just be luck of the draw. Maybe the person who traded this in had just recently changed strings, but these felt nice. And despite the rest of the guitar being dirty, I thought the frets were actually really good. I just personally wanted a slightly deeper clean of the fretboard, so I did my typical steel wool polish job here. But you can see somebody's fingernail definitely rubbed through our rosewood right there, so you've got some divoting, and you have some more of that as you go up. But as far as the cleanliness, we're good there, and I polished the frets a little bit more. But take a look at the dot inlays. In the 80s, they're ever so slightly smaller in the pearloid that they were using in this era. It's the only time that I personally like dot inlays. Then on the edge of the neck, you get to see how yellowed the lacquer is over our side markers. I don't notice any fret sprout. That's nice and smooth. As far as neck specs, it's 1.68 inches at the nut. Maintains that slenderness about 2.05 at the 12th. Just a hair under 0.8 at first fret neck depth. 0.96 at the 12th. Here that is on the contour gauge, 1st and 12th fret to help you visualize. In the hand, feels like a smaller C shape. But here's the real kicker for me. It's not wide and thin. It's a little bit more narrow this way. So it feels a bit more rounded than the numbers necessarily lead you to believe. It's a nice in-between neck profile, I would say. More similar to like Gibson USA's rounded 50s. These utilize a 24 3/4-inch scale length and a 12-inch fretboard radius. And it's important to note that you can actually find at least 2 different fretboard options on these. Some are rosewood, like we're documenting tonight. I know it looks nice after the conditioning process, but I promise you this one is rosewood. And other ones are ebony. So if you wanted a cool ebony fretboard SG Special, they are out there. Just take a good close look. And now moving up here to our headstock. Whenever you're buying a vintage guitar, you always want to inspect the truss rod, make sure it's working, doesn't have tons of threads sticking out. This one's perfect. The truss rod cover itself has many scratches and has clearly been used quite a bit. We're missing that bottom loop, but at least both of these screws are in place. The tuners have been replaced on this example. It's what it originally would have shipped with. The giveaway on this one that it's modern is it has the PW branding. That's Pingworks, so these were Chinese made, but you would find something very similar on the originals. Another giveaway that the tuners have been replaced, if you look closely at the screws used to secure them, it looks like they used half of the originals and half of the new ones. And you see this vertical finish checking? That's very common on these cheaper Gibsons of the era. I've always hypothesized that the maple that they were using for the necks of these maybe had a little bit too much moisture. You see it all the time on the alder body ones too. But if you see a large line right here along your headstock, don't be scared. This does not have a separate veneer over it. It's just painted and then they do the decal because that is just the headstock wings coming together. It will not be a crack. And rarely does it separate. But occasionally you'll get a jagged line and it'll scare people. But this one's got many nicks and dings along the edge on top of our replaced tuners. Another thing that's common is chipped finish around the tuners. They just put a lot of pressure on that paint right there. Now, as far as this having a mahogany or maple neck, I popped one of the tuners off to take a closer look. I could see it being maple or mahogany, like a slightly darker maple here, but I'm going to go with my gut. I believe by this year, we've transitioned fully into the mahogany necks again. Although an earlier version of this may indeed have maple. But also keep in mind these metallic finishes are prone to finish checking. This one has tons of it all around the top side. Moving on to the backside, you can see more of this beautiful olive green finish. Really, the back's not all chewed up. Like, it's got some scratches and impressions, nicks and dings, but as compared to the top and the edges, it's much nicer in my opinion. Here's the most unflattering lighting situation I can find to show you the extent of the damages back here. But do you guys see what I see right down here? In the light, you can tell that this mahogany has a really cool wood grain formation, that ringiness that I've always liked. So, I mean, if you wanted to strip it down, it looks like we might have at least a 3-piece body. But we can take a second to appreciate all the nicks and dings along the edge here. That's a pretty nasty gouge over there. And here's a closer look. That just looks like, it doesn't match up from fretwear-wise, but somebody had to have been playing up here, and it just lightly flaked the clear coat away. But we have a replaced strap button here. And then oddly enough, a lone Schaller strap lock in the bottom position. Something to keep in mind. You might want to replace those so they match or continue to rock it like that. But here's a look at our back plate. These tend to shrink. You can see that's happening a little bit right here and just over tightened in general. But it does its job. Now our control cavity. Again, another area where you can see the original finish without a yellowed clear coat on it. But I actually found the name of a previous owner or somebody who did the modification works. Looks like Joel Poherence, something like that. He signed this 7/18 of 2001, back when this was just considered a used guitar. So here's our current solder work on our neck volume. Definitely not factory, but pretty decent. And then we've got some weird stuff going on here. So if you look closely, 137 tells you it's a CTS pot, and then it says 85-1 something. So that tells us this pot dates to 1985, anywhere between 10th to 19th. I can't read the last digit. So is it possible that was replaced? Yeah, but a slightly old pot, that's not too out of the ordinary. Usually I try to see, does it match the other ones? And unfortunately, everything we need's covered over right there, but it looks like that would be a 12. So if that's the 12th week, that would make sense. But then this pencil stenciling over here was actually from the factory, and it's another great area to see that mahogany body. But now moving on from our body, we've got our neck. We'll get it in the unflattering light. It's got nicks and dings. If you want a completely clean neck, this one is not for you. However, I don't think anything too excessive on this one that will like make you go, oh no, there's a huge ding. But there's a little bit. There is a little. There's definitely some mild finish contamination. Some players sweat does that. Other times they have a particular lotion. The finish checking really helped that get in there. That's why I also wanted to polish the neck so I could be upfront about how much damage was actually done. And in the grand scheme of things, it's not bad. This actually feels quite nice now. And now the back side of the headstock. I don't see any obvious breaks, cracks, or repairs. It's not a factory second either. If you see an SEC right above it, that means it is. This is a pretty early one. The 26th day of 1987, Nashville produced production number 25, which makes it the 26th guitar stamped that day, made in USA. Now blacklight test time. Oh man, I lost the bet. That doesn't always show up. It depends on the style of sticker, how long it was on there. It looks like it just slightly reacted to the finish. Trust me, there's a mild shadow there. It just has not reacted to the lacquer. But this shows you that gouge I was talking about, the area where the clear coat's been rubbed through. If you wanted to make it extra green, play it with UV light. But here you can see all those other nicks and dings I was talking about, where it broke through the finish. Our headstock has a very nice and even glow. Just again, those areas that we already saw. And then moving on to the backside of our headstock, no worries there. No repairs, no breaks. However, we can see there is a little bit of clear coat wear right here on the neck. And this also helps show you all the light dings that you've got scattered all across here. And here's that weird area in the finish. It's just a mild discoloration and clear coat chipping. It hasn't actually gone through down to the base coat yet. But we've got some more nicks and dings along the edge. Pretty much exactly what I was expecting. That passes the blacklight test. Hey, Trogly from the future here. While I was setting it up, I happened to notice, why does it feel so stiff up here? Why can't I bend the strings? Then I noticed, oh, that's a wound G string. This must be strung with like what, 12s or 13s? That's actually a really good thing because even with that heavy of a gauge, the neck is nice and straight. And it plays nice with these. However, if I wanted to go lower, maybe then the fret wear and stuff could come into play. But right now, it seems pretty good. And also while setting it up, I was looking at the neck again. It's like, that is kind of a scary crack. But thanks to our blacklight test, I'm confident that is only in the finish. Because if you get it in the light just right, it lines up with another finish check line there. And it actually tapers off into just a regular check. Now, is it possible this was dropped and that caused that? Yes, but it did not flex enough to break the wood. So, something I wanted to be upfront about because I could totally see how that might scare someone. All said and done, this particular example weighs just a hair under 6 pounds, 10 ounces. Not too bad. But let's go ahead, plug this one in, and hear how it sounds. I've got it tuned up to E flat due to the heavier strings. It's been a while since we've had a nice vintage guitar on the show. The clarity of the pickups is phenomenal. It almost has a slight active tone on the bottom strings. You know, kind of piezo-like. Maybe that's not the best words to describe it, but it's got a slight country twang to it as well. That's before we even mess with the volume or tones. I could sit there and play that particular chord all day long. This color, it's very well associated with guys like Bill Kelleher from Mastodon. For the more sludgy stuff. I want a little bit more highs out of that bridge pickup and it just doesn't quite have it. It still sounds great though. So there we are, a 1987 Gibson SG Special. Haven't had one of these in a while. Super stoked that I was able to document one to its full extent. Especially in one of the, I'm not going to say it's impossible to find it in the pewter hue, but you don't find many Gibsons in this original finish that was birthed in the 80s. I think it looks quite fantastic on an SG. But as far as the original pickups in here, yeah, if you can get the original set, I think you'll be happy. What they do is quite fantastic. Now, as I was saying in that demo, sometimes I was wanting a little bit more out of that bridge. This is already pretty close to the string, so I don't know how much more you could really push that. But that neck pickup was just absolutely fantastically crisp and clear. However, it's very common for people to pilfer the pickups out of these to restore higher end models. So just because one doesn't have the original pickups doesn't mean you don't buy it. It means you just don't pay as much for it. The neck profile is really chunky as you get up towards the 12th fret. I noticed that while doing the whole Foo Fighters stuff up here. I wouldn't call it cumbersome, but it's definitely a slightly different than usual profile on an SG. So that might be a benefit to you. Also, thankfully, when I had it on a strap, neck diving didn't really happen on this particular one. It's actually well balanced, despite what I was feeling at the start of the episode. I wasn't loving the layout of this one, but I think you could learn to enjoy it. It's certainly not quite as good as the typical SG layout. But overall, yeah, I think these SG Specials are a great introductory vintage Gibson SG. However, a standard's really not that much more. But if you hate binding and fancy inlays, the Special might even appeal to you more. So hopefully this video helps you make an informed decision whether one of these mid-80s SG Specials are for you. And remember, don't forget to visit Guitar Center. Utilize my affiliate links. That's how they know that these little marketing programs that just allow us to have more fun content. That's why I like this natural integration with Guitar Center. So thank you, Guitar Center, for working with me. I'm having fun, and hopefully it helps viewers find some cool guitars. But all right, troglodytes, we'll catch you guys tomorrow on the next one. Take care.